everyone. This is Nithya Ramachandra from the NR Hour Sports Show. This is episode 976. We are live on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, and on the Spreaker app. All the fans can tune in and ask questions to David. So we are joined by David Aardsma. He's a former MLB pitcher. Man, what a great career and inspiring story in his career, which we'll get to. He pitched for the San Francisco Giants, Chicago Cubs, Chicago White Sox, Boston Red Sox, Mariners, Yankees, Mets, Atlanta Braves, the World Series champ Atlanta Braves, I should say, this year. But thank you for joining the show, David. It's truly an honor. And like I said, you have an inspiring story. All the fans are looking forward to listening to your story. So first of all, how are you and your family doing today?
Oh, man, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. This is awesome. And then hopefully we get some cool questions. I love that sort of stuff, but you start going through the list of teams, man, it's so long. When people ask me, oh, you play baseball, who'd you play for? I'm like, 14 teams, and here we go. You start naming them all off. Family's great, man. Got, my two sons, I got a wife. We're here in Arizona, and things have just been wonderful. Starting baseball up again, flag football's full go, and then and then obviously I'm looking forward to figuring out whatever's going on with baseball and see what Major League Baseball's got.
Yeah, so let's start off. What got you into pitching? Let's start off with that.
And so that's a great question. That's an interesting one. I don't know anybody's ever asked me that. I like it. When I was young, I grew up in Colorado, kind of in the foothills and in the mountains of Colorado. Horseback riding, riding my bike, riding, just being an outdoors kid, like type of thing. We didn't have any baseball teams. We didn't have any sports teams at all. So I just ended up watching baseball. My dad would have me watch, baseball with him at night, hockey at night, everything. Had a baseball glove, but that's it. No one else played baseball or football or anything. So moved to California just for my dad's work, and it just baseball mecca, Southern California. Let's do this. And at the time, it was really, you had to choose between baseball and soccer. Easy choice for me. I'd already loved baseball and got into baseball. And then, but actually, to answer your question, the best thing about this was I got there too late. So I missed the beginning of the Little League season. So we had to get a coach. So my old pitching coach, Tom Page, was working with me and started developing me as a pitcher and as a baseball player and stuff. But really as a pitcher, I loved it. I loved having that ball in my hand and being able to control them and do whatever I wanted to do. But I never really pitched in games until like my sophomore year in high school. It was always something I did on the side, threw a little bit in games. I pitched, but not like I was never the man. And so it was really just a chance by missing the season. I fell into being a pitcher.
Wow. Yeah. So speaking of starting late, so obviously most of the athletes that we had on the show recently have started late in their whatever sport they want to do. So for you, what made you decide to start late in high school, and take us to the advantage and the disadvantage of that starting late in your career before?
I was never that great athletically. I never made an all-star team as a Little Leaguer. I was good, I was all right, never was like great. I was a little taller than most kids, but never all that special in anything. And so, but the one thing I did have was I worked my butt off. I would practice really hard, outside the field. My parents were very fortunate and got me a pitching coach. And so I was constantly learning the game, and I loved the game. And I had a passion ever since I was a little kid. I still have little things from like second grade where I said, what do I want to be? I want to be an Air Force pilot, because obviously Tom Gunn, got to be an Air Force pilot, and a baseball player, and pitching for the Cubs in Wrigley Field. Like those were it. But I also told myself, if I can be an Air Force pilot, cool, but I am going to be a baseball player. And so I had this passion and this drive to really go for it. Mm-hmm. Then, but I loved being an outfield. I loved hitting. I loved playing like third base. And I was playing third base in high school, made my freshman B team as a third baseman and an outfielder. I didn't even make the A team. And I remember my sophomore year, I was the only kid that made the sophomore team from that B team. And I'm standing there at third base, and I had a pretty good year. I hit about 500 my freshman year. And I was like, believe myself. And I'm standing behind the starter ahead of me. We're both sophomores. And he's a little shorter than me, but he's built, just strong, like a house, football player, and I'm looking at him, and I'm making every play, but I'm like, I am not going to beat this guy. I am not going to play over this guy. And rightfully so. I'm like, I should not play over this guy. And then I was like, okay, like my only other road is pitching, but I'd always been pitching on the side. And so that's when I just went like pitcher only, basically my sophomore year in high school. And then strides started happening. And you could really see things start clicking. I started growing into my body, understanding my body movement. And the big advantage I think I had that on it, it saved my arm, but it also taught me to try to see what I could be. And pitching was what came to me. Every player has a moment where the position that they're right for hits them. I'll never forget this. Paul Giannis, who played in the big leagues, with a couple different teams, with the Reds mainly, he was supposed to be a pitcher in college. He went to Rice University with me as a pitcher, and he was supposed to be a pitcher. And then, but they're like, oh, I can play a little shortstop. And he ends up going to the big leagues as a shortstop, because they just like, oh, well, we'll give you a practice. Let's see what you got. And you're just like, yeah, you're a shortstop. So everybody has that moment where it hits them what they should do. I might have just found it a little bit earlier than most, and I was able to capitalize on that.
Wow. Yeah, so we already have 2 fan questions that came in. So one of our fans want to know, who are some of the pitchers that you looked up to back in your era while you were growing up? And the next part, and then one of our other fans want to know, did you ever consider being like a player like Shohei Ohtani?
Okay, first, I can't hit. I could hit as a freshman in high school. Again, that's where my hitting stopped, and my wife reminds me of this all the time. There's several videos, just like, and that's probably the best I could have ever done in big league, strike out. I did that very well, and I made it look good. So no, Shohei Ohtani, God no. Plus, I'll be honest, I'm not that athletic. It's the flow of the game does not match me. And when I look over and I see other guys, and you just see it, they are just different. And you watch Shohei, and you're like, wow, this dude can do it, like legitimately do it. It's incredibly amazing. And so the other players I looked up to, I got to say players, because the first player, my hero was Ryan Sandberg. You can kind of see up here. Yeah. It's kind of cool little artwork of him. It's a
oh wow, okay, I see it.
It's actually all made out of duct tape. It's actually kind of cool. Ryan Sandberg was my hero growing up as a Cub fan. Again, I was a position player, so I wanted to be Ryan Sandberg. But I also loved, the other player I just loved was Roger Clemens. I watched him. The thing I liked about him was the mentality on the mound. He owned the mound. He owned the idea. So my very first Little League team we were Red Sox. I had to be number 21. Had to be number 21. And so I had, like, Roger Clemens, watching throughout his career was crazy impressive. And it's about being a different person on that mound and showing who you want to be, because everybody's watching, especially the hitter and those hitters on deck. And so he made a bigger than life idea of himself. Nolan Ryan was great too. He was a little younger than my time, I was a little too old. And Roger was just hitting right when I was growing up. So he was really my number one pitcher. And then later on, I actually made a point out of always watching other pitchers warm up. I was weirdly obsessed with it. So in Seattle, there was always a cage where in the bullpen, there was a spot that was a chain link fence, and I'd stand there and I'd watch everybody. Wow. So like Mariano, I just stand there and just watch Mariano. Anybody that went through Seattle while I was there, I sat there and watched them. Let alone working with Felix every single day. I'd watch every single bullpen and talk to him through his bullpens, because I always wanted to I like that mindset of the guys that were able to do it for a long time consistently. Guy like Mariano, who was a guy who just one pitch and he just owned it, and he acted like nothing ever happened, whether you score a run or not. And I always like to know what made those guys tick.
Yeah. So tell us, speaking of Mariano, obviously you got to spend time with him when you were at the Yankees in the spring training. And so what was it like spending time with the Yankees, and obviously historic franchise, 27 World Series champion, and you got to play with Derek Jeter on the team, a lot of great players. Just tell us about Mariano, how he, what was it like just being close up to him, learning from him, and seeing how he goes about his business?
Yeah, so when I came to the Yankees, I was coming off a hip surgery
Yeah.
and Tommy John surgery. So initially I was only rehabbing. I was playing catch though, but I was slowly coming back. But so unfortunately I didn't get to spend too much time with him. I spent a whole spring training with him, spent some at the end of the year with him. But he had already hurt his knee that season, unfortunately, in Kansas City when he was running around the outfield. So, but I really tried to take advantage of that time. And during that time, some of the things that I took away was that he approached every day with a purpose, a passion, and he knew what his goal was that day, and he executed it. Nothing was going to get in Mariano's way of executing his goal and his purpose. And then cool, complete calmness at all times. I learned this really early on. My very first ever coach in baseball and in professional baseball told me, never get too high, never get too low, stay in the middle. And he goes, dude, please never forget this and never forget it. And Mariano was the epitome of that. When I was with Seattle, Ichiro hit a walk-off home run off of Mariano.
Wow.
That was Mariano's first ever walk-off home run hit off of him. Ichiro's first ever walk-off home run. It was, I mean, you're watching history happen. Ichiro comes, I mean, we're losing our shit. We're going crazy. And I'm standing in the hallway after the game, full unit up still, talking to my wife, just like cloud nine.
Wow.
Mariano comes walking down the hallway, and I kind of like my eyes are on him, right? I'm watching him because this is my guy. This is who I want to be. And he's got two ice cream cones, one in each hand, and just licking and then licking and then licking. And I'm like, this dude just literally just gave up history.
Wow.
He gave up history. Like he lost in a huge fashion. And it's like he couldn't even care less, which he does.
Mm-hmm.
You know it matters. But he knows that tomorrow I'm going to come out and I'm probably going to break Ichiro's bat and I'm going to get the save. And then I'm going to do it for the next 15 times in a row. And then something may happen. And then I'm going to do it 15 times in a row. Super calm. And so like I realized really quickly, he's going to come back the next day and be probably the best pitcher on the mound.
Yeah.
Because he never let it even phase him. I always had that idea of like being a closer. You can't let things phase you when you give up the game. And that was that moment though, where it like punched me in the face. Like that's what it looks like.
Wow. And so full circle comes. Ichiro comes to the Yankees when he in 2012 too, which is crazy. So I don't know. Yeah. So obviously he wasn't during spring training, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. He wasn't there when you were there, right?
He was there. God, I want to say because my timeline sometimes gets messed up because I also saw Ichiro multiple times around there too. Like Ichiro and I were locker mates in Seattle. Lockers basically like our lockers were right next to each other, so we had a very close relationship for 3 years essentially. And man, I loved every minute of it. It's so fun.
Yeah.
All the time, and it was incredible
Oh.
to be around him. And so sometimes I get fuzzy whether he's there. I mean, I've played in 14 teams with like 14 different spring trainings or something like that, 12, 13 different spring trainings. So sometimes you remember like, oh yeah, he was there. And they're like, wait, no, he wasn't. Like he was there like the year after. But so I don't think I ever played with him as a Yankee, but I remember running into him a couple times and hanging out talking with EG.
Yeah, so we have another fan question. They want to know how did you go about your business when it comes to warm-ups before getting into a game as a pitcher?
Yeah, I will try to take the big, huge answer and come here. So one thing I always took pride in, I was a routine-oriented player. We can call it superstition, we can call it like all this other stuff. No, man, I'm routine-oriented. Coach or the bullpen coach of the Baltimore Orioles taught me that when he was a pitching coach with the Cubs and the minors, and I worked a lot with him, got really close with him. So what my thing was I built a routine from the moment the game started to the moment I'm walking into the game, and then during the game, and then post game. And I was stuck with my routine. And so I would always sit there and I knew exactly when I wanted to do it, what I was going to do, and how that mattered to me and what I was going to do to prepare me. So I had a huge long routine, and even before the game, I had certain routines too. And so what I would always do if I was closing the game, if I knew I was going to pitch like the 8th or 9th inning, I knew I can kind of like hang out, relax the first 4 innings. Fifth inning, I'm going to stretch. I'm going to go through an entire stretching routine that I had. Sixth inning, I'm still kind of going through the routine, working on a couple delivery stuff, maybe a couple things that I just know in my mind I need to lock in for that day. That the throwing routine, I could feel some things were off. So I'll kind of lock these things in. Seventh inning, go out, play catch with the outfielder. Eighth inning, I am making sure I'm locking in the order who I'm going to face, plus the next guy. So 4 hitters, and then the left-handed batter off the bench. Because I needed to make sure, I'm closing, even if it's a good hitter, they might go to the bench just to get a guy. I'm running through, are they power hitters, contact hitters? Are they situational hitters? Are they runners? Are they hit and run guys? Are they bunters? Are they power guy? Are they power guys that are like all power, or are they like a Mark Teixeira where they'll hit the ball in the gap, they'll take a walk? We're running through everything, how I want to pitch them. I'm running through my mind. I'm presetting every pitch to every guy. So I'm facing them in my head, but long before I ever face them in the game, let alone I'm doing this from the fifth inning on. Also, fifth inning, I'm like there, I'm looking up going, okay, sixth, these guys, seventh, these guys, eighth, these guys, ninth, these guys, hit, boom, hit. Okay. Transition, this. So I'm always kind of running it through my head. So I'm facing these hitters 15, 20 times in my head long before I ever set up on the mound. And I'm like, I'm going to get an advantage. They don't know I'm coming in. Mm-hmm. I know they're in there though. And so I would run all the way through that. And so it was an exhausting process, and it was every single day, 162 games a season. Yeah. But man, it locks you in. And I faced guys 1,000 times long before I ever faced them on the mound. Like, it feels like 1,000 times, but hundreds of times.
Yeah. So this is a 2-part question, and tell our fans what was you took an interesting route before starting in your majors. You went to the Cape Cod League, and you had a 0.68 ERA in that league. And would you say that league helped you prepare yourself to become a major league pitcher? And also, the next part to this question, obviously you spent your whole career with a lot of different teams, but all historic franchises. So what did you learn from each franchise?
That's cool. That's cool, because I've thought about that before. The Cape Cod League was amazing. My freshman year in college, went to Penn State. During a time when I was like kind of thinking about transferring from Penn State, and I ended up going to Rice, where I thought about going somewhere else, but I committed to going to the Coastal Plains League, and it was their first ever season for the Fayetteville Swamp Dogs. Had an amazing year. That was probably a great learning experience, transitioning from program to program, and really kind of being in the limelight of Cape Cod or Coastal Plains League. That was the first time I was like the dude. And then go to Rice. We have 2002. We play our season, and then I get my opportunity to go to Cape Cod. This is it, man. Like, that's Team USA is the only other place to play, and I would say this: Cape Cod may not have the names, but it had overall way better talent than Team USA ever faced. Every day you stepped on the field with Team USA, the only time they get great competition is when they played each other or in a huge world event, which is once. Every team had a first rounder basically. So it was an incredible experience. One, people in Cape Cod, I gotta give my shout out. I always gotta give shout out when talking about Cape Cod to Helen Kennedy, my host mom when I was out there. But having that experience, facing those guys, that was the first real time in college where I said, okay, I'm facing the best, and I got it. I know what I'm capable of now. And in your butt saying, all right, dude, if you're gonna do this, like, we can do this now. This is like, believe in yourself. Don't just blindly believe in yourself. Everything came together, and also it was great playing in Falmouth with the lights. The lights were horrible because they had some osprey nesting in some of the lights, so they couldn't turn them all on. So I had the best advantage ever. I'm throwing out there at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night, bringing 100 miles an hour, throwing as hard as I can, right down the middle. I'm like, you got no chance. And so it was. I definitely took advantage of that. But coming out of there, man, that put me in a position to be drafted, and really, the Cape Cod League was the league that got me drafted. Then transition to the other question, playing I mean, God, right? You played for the Giants,
Yeah.
played for the Dodgers. I didn't get the big leagues, but I played spring training and minor leagues with the Dodgers, so I got to see that. Cubs,
The
White Sox,
Red
and Cardinals. I've spent a whole year in the minor leagues, but I spent a lot of time learning their system.
Yeah.
Then you get Yankees, Red Sox, Mets, some of the historical stuff, and then obviously the Braves for years and years and years. Had a lot of history. Sorry, one second. Okay, sorry, my wife's leaving. She's amazing.
Shout out to your wife.
Oh yeah, I got to, man. She's the rock that ran the ship, man. She's amazing. So playing with those historical franchises and playing in a lot of those really amazing rivalries, right? I mean, being a Red Sox walking into Yankee Stadium, that's so cool. I mean, it was awesome. Being a Cub, going to St. Louis, being a Giant and playing, in Dodger Stadium. Some of these things a lot of players don't ever get to experience. They play, every team has a rival, every team has a history. But when you're playing for some of those organizations in the biggest games, I mean, I'll never forget Moises Alou when I was with the Giants, and we're playing we're playing our first series of the year against the Dodgers. And he sat down, he goes, guys, for anybody that's new to this, he goes, you've played baseball your whole career, you're playing the big leagues. He goes, but this is different. He goes, I never tell you guys I expect us to win until we play the effing Dodgers. And we better go out there and show them who we are. He said, your city depends on it. I go, they are behind you. Show them who you are. And he's like, go kick their ass. And so it was a lot of fun. And then you go in that rivalry, man, it's a monster. It is a monster. That was the best rivalry I've ever played for.
Wow.
I mean, it's angry. Our entire families had to drive into the stadium with security because they didn't trust that the bus wasn't going to get hijacked, or our wives and girlfriends could not go to the bathroom without security. I mean, it was crazy. And then you go to the Cubs St. Louis, a totally different rivalry, just as much history, but it's more of I got done with the game in St. Louis. I am walking out of the stadium, walking to the hotel, because I always loved walking. I wanted to discover the cities. And Cardinals fans recognized me. They're like, you're a Cub. And I was like, oh, here we go. And they're like, come on, let's buy you a beer. They go, dude, you kicked our butt today, man. Great job. And they're like, dude, you pitched awesome. And they bought me a beer, and we're hanging out with Cardinals fans. Like, it was about baseball. It was the love of the game. And like Cubs fans, Cardinals fans, is all like, we just love baseball so much. Let's enjoy this. That was a cool experience. Then you go to the East, then you're in Yankee Stadium, you're Red Sox. That was, I've never, the expectation to win, the pressure on both teams to win, which is different. San Francisco didn't have the pressure. The pressure as being a Yankee, the pressure being a Red Sox every day. I mean, our owners, we wanted to have some things done in the locker room to improve the locker room. They said, go on the road trip and win, and you'll have it. If you don't win, you won't have it. I mean, it's like pressure all the time, expectation. And if you don't, you're going to hear about it. It's not like that anywhere else. And so those games, what I actually found, the fans were not as bad as the Dodger Giants games. Not even close. Not even close. You hear about it, you think it's so much worse. But what I realized really quick, they love baseball so much, but they love their team so much more. It's not an anger against the other one. It's more of like we're better than you, we're going to show you. And whenever fans would yell at us, right? In bullpen, we get yelled at all the time. So whenever fans would yell at us, if you were quick-witted and had something good to come back with, the other fans loved it. Yeah. So like, I'll never forget Mike Timlin sitting in Yankee Stadium. Yankees have hated Mike Timlin his whole career. He was an Oriole, pitched great. Red Sox pitched amazing, all this stuff. Brought him to World Series titles against the Yankees. And so he was a Blue Jay too. Again, I mean, they had the right to hate this human being more than any other baseball player probably on that field. A couple of Yankee fans start mouthing off. He turns around and comes back. I forgot what the line was, but he just destroys them. I mean, takes their soul out and just twists it and throws it in the garbage. Wow. And the fans were laughing, hollering at him. And then told those other fans to sit down and shut up. And they basically, their fans started standing up and yelling at the other fans to shut up. And that's when I realized, like, wow, dude, like they want their team to win, but they're not to berate other players because they love the game too. It's like all three of those rivalries are all different, and it's so cool.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. So this is two more fans questions came in. First one is they want to know what was your hype music throughout your career coming into a game, and the next question is what they want to know what was some of your best moments throughout your career too.
Okay, so hype music. When I was in high school, I wanted to come out to Bad to the Bone. I had no right to do it. I was like 150 pounds of scrawny, nothing. Came out to it though. No, trust me, I didn't have the mindset for it. But dude, when you step on that mound though, dude, I was a different person, right? I'm gonna shove this ball up your behind. Can I cuss?
Yeah, you can. Yeah,
I'm gonna shove this ball up your ass. But like, I was the nice. It was crazy. A lot of people thought I was like this mad, angry guy on the mound that liked, and like they realized like afterwards. I remember it was like Milton Bradley or something. Somebody told me like, dude, like you're like the nicest guy ever. You should be meaner. And I'm like, he goes, I always thought you were an asshole. I'm like, no, but when you put that ball in my hand, I'm an asshole. So that was that one. Great Day to Be Alive, or It's a Great Day to Be Alive by Travis Tritt was my college one because I was a starter. You know, I started too. Like I just loved it. But then when I got to college, you know, everything kind of changed. I came out to Hell's Bells and at Rice when I started closing and we win the College World Series. I was Hell's Bells and it was like boom, like they rocked it too. And like the second I stepped out of the bullpen, it was like boom, like it was awesome. And then obviously you get to the big leagues and you can't be Hell's Bells because of Trevor Hoffman. Like he owns it. I'm sorry, I respect that. He owns it. So never really had anything initially for a little bit. I in the minors, I had some fun ones like Fat Bottom Girls by Queen was one. Just some fun ones that nothing stuck because I knew like I have to earn it to be a big leaguer. Yeah. Can you still hear me?
Yeah,
okay. We paused for a second.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you that time.
Okay. So when I went to the Red Sox and I finally got to kind of pick one, "Ladies and Gentlemen" by Saliva was my song. And then I went to the Mariners and they made it big. They did a whole like video production out of it. They turned the lights off in the stadium and like should start turning them back on. And it was pretty cool, pumped me up. And the lyrics of that are perfect for a closer, stuff like that.
Wow. Yeah. So, and then also one of our other fans want to know about your some of your best moments throughout your career.
Yes, best moments. You know, God, it's so amazing. Like a lot of my moments were just teammates and stuff, being with teammates. High school won state championship, that was amazing. College, going to the College World Series, especially at Rice, who had always had a stigma of sucking and losing the College World Series. We never won a College World Series game. And then we go out and we just whoop everybody's ass and win the College World Series. And it was amazing to finally get that. It's tiny, small school in D1, and we go out and kill it. Like that was amazing. Getting drafted is obviously one of those special moments you always have. First day in the big leagues. I think the problem is it happened so quick. I played 18 games in the minor leagues. And so that happened so fast, you don't really get to realize it, which is probably the best thing that ever happened to me. And then I would say after that, I mean, pitching in Wrigley, you know, like I said, I dreamed about it. And then I go to my first big league game and I get the win out of the bullpen. And I wasn't even winning the game when I left the game. We were losing, but the score's discretion gave me the win. They said I had the biggest impact on the game. It was like, I didn't know it until the interviews. Guys were putting cameras in my face saying, "Congratulations on the win." I'm like, I shouldn't have got the win. I'm like, I think it's Jason Christensen should have, or Scotty Airway should have got the win. They're like, no, they gave it to you. Like, okay. Going to Wrigley Field, first game ever stepping on foot of Wrigley Field. I come out of the bullpen, pitch an inning, get the win. Like, what the hell? This is amazing. Like this is not right. And then I would say after that, like, you know, like you go to moments with the Red Sox, you know, and you're watching man.
Yeah, it
All
froze.
right, we're back.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's my internet or not. But you know, watching like Barry pass Willie Mays, you know, going to Seattle, becoming the closer, that's incredible. Watching playing with Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah.
and hanging out with him, like literally just grabbing dinner with Griffey. Like, are you kidding me? Like, this isn't right. This is goes out like, you know, like he's holding my son right after he was born. Like, I got a picture of him holding my son.
Wow.
Like that's incredible. And then I would say being a Yankee, walking, you know, making my comeback
Yeah.
as a Yankee was amazing because it's again, it's one of those storied things, and so many people were in my corner supporting me when I finally stepped back on the field after so many injuries. And then probably one of the last big ones I can really think of was, you know, I was kind of getting pushed out of the game and spent a whole year in the minors, and I was being told to retire and stuff. And I made another comeback and pitched for the Braves. I think after that game, I started crying, type of thing, you know, because I did something I was told by a million people I couldn't do, and it was like the culmination of my whole career, always being told you couldn't do it, you weren't good enough, and all these times just beating expectations. And that was like one of those moments that one stopped me in my tracks because the motion of being told by so many people, dude, you're done, thank you, and just telling them thank you, but I don't believe you. And then proving it was special.
Wow. Yeah. So speaking of that, making comebacks, let's tell our fans about your inspiring story. Obviously, you went through a lot of injuries, rehabs, and then obviously making a comeback. And how tough was it for you going through those rehabs and trying to overcome these injuries? And you overcame these injuries, making those comebacks. So tell our fans about the process, how you did it, and what made you stay on that track. Yeah, because some players would give up after that, but you didn't give up. You just kept working hard.
Dude, you know, I'm gonna try and make a super long story and sum it up. This one's hard because there's so many different things. So like you get to 2008, I'd never been an injured guy, never had arm injuries, never had shoulder injuries, never had body injuries, nothing. In 08, so it's like my 5th year professional baseball, groin issues, right? And that really derailed. If you look at my first half of 08, the second half of 08, it's like a giant. It's like I had a 2 ERA and a 6 ERA, and I ended up with like a 5 or something because it was that bad. I didn't have any groin issues. 09, 10, I had a little one, but it wasn't really a big deal. Very end of 2010, I started feeling pain in my hip. Didn't know what it was. We thought it was an oblique issue. We ate IT band, all this other stuff. Ended up needing major hip surgery. I had a growth on I basically had an impingement in my hip, tore all of the cartilage out of the hip. They had to shave all that down, do microfracturing, repair it. Major. I couldn't walk for 8 weeks. I couldn't put my foot on the ground for 8 weeks. The day I could put my foot on the ground, started playing catch. Probably the worst decision I ever made. But everybody was in support of it. I was killing it, doing great. Within 1 month, we were on the mounds throwing bullpens, which is mind-numbing, knowing now what we know now. Like I would never have done that. Within, God, I don't know, maybe 2-3 weeks after that, I was pitching games in the minors, or maybe it might have been a month, which again is blowing my mind of how stupid we were. But again, like went into it eyes wide open because I wanted to prove myself. My very first game, rehab game, very first game back after my hip surgery, like in the minors, I'm rehab game, blew my elbow out. A lot of people only knew about that because they didn't really know about the hip stuff. They didn't realize, and I didn't realize at the time, the injuries of the hip changed my body and how I moved, and my strength and my mobility put a lot more pressure on my shoulders and my throwing arm because I still wanted to throw 100, and blew that out. I mean, I didn't have a chance, right? So that took basically I missed 2 years because of that. Devastated me. So when I came back as a Yankee, first game, and we're in Toronto, first batter gave up a home run, JP Arencibia. And he basically told me he never wanted to face me. And he goes, so he just swung as hard as he could on like the first pitch. Wow. I was like, all right, dude, like, I'm not angry at you. I would have, in my mind, it pictured it going differently, but I did everything. I think I got a home run, a base hit, strikeout, and a walk all in one inning. I'm like, dude, I covered all my bases. We did this. And then, but I never fixed the problem.
Right.
I never corrected the problem. So I never got stronger. I never really got more mobile. I didn't address my biomechanical issues. I was pitching in the big leagues, having some success, had some success with the Mets, actually had some really interesting success. Some when you get into the back stats, it's actually pretty amazing. I set a record for the Mets in most inherited runners that did not score. I think it was 19 for 19. That's as a reliever, that's what you look at. Like, I walk in, somebody's on base, I walk in, that guy is staying on base. He's not scoring. So I had some really cool stuff happen. And but my numbers started going down and down, my speed was going down. And I get to the Cardinals and I'm like, I've got a 0 ERA basically in the minors, but I'm throwing 87,
wow,
88. Like, that's the best I got. I went from averaging like 98 one year to throwing 88. And then I tear my groin like almost off the bone. So I had to have groin surgery, and that led me to actually Top Velocity, because I started doing a lot of research saying, one thing I always say is, I had a problem, I'm going to fix it. My wife was really pushing me, saying, we got to find a solution for whatever's causing all these hip issues, all these groin issues that I was having too. And so a lot of people didn't know this. When I was at the Yankees, I had a really bad, probably a tear in my groin, but I wanted to come back so bad that I was basically popping pills to get back on that mound and pitch. Wow. Like, I was pitching when I made my comeback, my groin was probably completely torn. And because I no choice, man. I was going to come back. I was going to do it. So found Top Velocity that year after the Cardinals, and just changed everything. Changed my diet, my nutrition, my training, my throwing. And so I went from throwing 88 to throwing like 95, touching 95 that year, healthy, way better shape than I'd ever been. And a whole new lot of life and a whole new lot in my career, and understanding how your body moves and how training can affect that, and to improve movement patterns. And then made a comeback pitch with the Braves that year. The next year I ended up not making the Blue Jays, and unfortunately just, it kind of sucked. That was my last kind of chance in the big leagues. I had a great year of independent ball. Pitched amazing. And actually that was one of the coolest years of my career, playing with Eric Gagne and pure baseball again. But then I took my job with the Blue Jays, the coordinator of player development. And my mind was, I didn't want what happened to me happen to anybody again, at least not under my watch. And so I got to bring in that data, bring in that analysis, try to connect training room, weight room, pitching mound, mobility, nutrition, all these spheres, try to bring them to the player. So a player like myself, we catch that problem before it ever happens, because we're addressing their biomechanical issues, their deficiencies. And that's what I do now. I left the Blue Jays last year after COVID. I left them and wanted to start my own thing and really help those players.
Wow, that's amazing, and that's really inspiring. And like I said, inspiring story. And now you're helping out the youth, which is really important. Yeah. And so before we get to the last two things here, one of our other fans want to know, what are your thoughts on the MLB lockout so far?
Dude, tough. Yeah. We kind of all saw it coming. I've had conversations with other guys that are a lot more knowledgeable of the inside conversations, and I haven't had conversations lately with guys, but they had basically told me that it wasn't looking good, and they're a lot further apart than what anybody thinks. And unfortunately, one side was very strongly in one corner, and the other was wanting to win. It's very unfortunate. I obviously stand behind the players, but I've been on both sides of it. One thing I know is a player's goals, what they've always been, and I worked very closely. I was on the negotiating committee with the union. I was a union rep for 7 years, something like that, man. And I was extremely close working with the union and being involved in 2 negotiations. Or one, and then part of another one. And so what I know is the players, their whole goal is to continue the game and continue basically making sure everybody's happy. That is their goal. The problem with the owners, you have 30 owners that all have their own goals. Yeah, you get pockets of guys, but they're all billionaires that have become extremely successful and they're all very smart. But there's 30 of them and they all have different vision of the game. And players, because of the union, how they've gone through Tony, is like, you got one vision, and that vision is the game. The owners are what's make this successful for us, and sometimes that doesn't match. I remember Donald Field or Michael Weiner, when he was the head of the union, always said, our job is to not get the owners in their own way, because you have so many different minds on the owner's side. He goes, our job is to see how they're seeing it and find that middle ground for all of them to be happy. He goes, that's our job as the players. He goes, you think it's the opposite way around, but that's our job, is to get them condensed into one viewpoint versus all these different factions. So
yeah,
it's not looking pretty, and I know they're going to get to something. I think it's going to end up being solved by a court somewhere.
Hopefully by end of March or April, hopefully it gets done.
Yeah. Hopefully much earlier than that, but yeah. I can see it by March.
Yeah, and the last 2 things here before I let you go, our team is part of this foundation. It's called the Hugh Jackson Foundation. He's a former NFL coach. He's now the head coach for Grambling State. We're trying to help him prevent human trafficking, making sure the community stays safe and the kids stay safe. So we'll send you the foundation so you can go check it out.
Dude, absolutely. I love stuff like that. People that are looking out for other people, especially something that doesn't get talked about enough, like human trafficking. It gets swept under the rug because it's kind of the ugly thing no one sees and no one wants to talk about, and especially people that are part of it, right? It's man, it's an epidemic that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's still horrible that what we're seeing out there, and it needs to stop. So we're coming up with every sort of way how to prevent it, and so it'll be awesome if you guys can join in also, and then we'll send you the foundation too.
Please do.
Yeah. And the last thing here, would you like to say anything to all the nurses, doctors, and all the center workers right now?
No, absolutely. You got to appreciate it. It's one of those things that was a thankless job for forever. Caring for others, going out of your way, and really taking the time to worry about others and making sure their health is number one. So yes, absolutely. Thank you. And you know what? I couldn't do this without you, right?
Yeah. So well said. And there it is. That wraps up episode 976 with former MLB pitcher David Aardsma. Man, what a great story, great career, amazing family. And I just want to say thank you for joining the show. It's truly an honor. And thank you to our fans for tuning in and asking questions to David also. So we would like to have you back on the show at some point down the line so you can meet the full team. But keep up the great work. Safe travels to LA. Enjoy the game, the Super Bowl, and tell your son I'm rooting for the Bengals too. So
awesome.
So, and have a great day and stay safe.
Really appreciate it. Thank you again for having me on.
Yeah, no problem.